Hi, and welcome to the Soulful Living podcast with me, Georgia Pitfield. This podcast is dedicated to reclaiming our true identities and rediscovering who we were before the world got in the way. Join me each week as we journey together to strip back the layers of societal conditioning, reconnect with our soul, and come home to the self. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Soulful Living with me, Georgia Pitfield. And this week I'm joined by Shane Oshoruah Alexander, a spiritual evolution consultant. Hi Shane, how are you?
Hi, Georgia. Feeling good.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. If I'm honest, we just had a quick catch up and I mentioned I feel nervous about this conversation. I have like weird excitement nerves, but I feel this is a big topic for me. I know it is for you as well. So I'm gonna have to take my time here while we're talking and really speak clearly and try and get my truth across. But yeah, it feels like a big conversation. So thank you so much for being here with me today. So we met in September 2021, I believe. And since then, remained in touch as friends, but also you've supported my partner and I in our own healing journey, healing wounds that we both had individually and together, and kind of, deepening our relationship, which has been such a massive help in our lives, not only forming a stronger bond with each other, but really with ourselves too. So I guess it's safe to say I trust your wisdom. I trust your advice. But the other reason I felt really drawn to holding this space with you today, particularly, is that like me, you also have a religious background. And like me, you also decided to move away from that into a life of what I call spiritual exploration. I don't know if that aligns with you as well, but that's definitely where I feel I'm at the moment. So I'm still moving through a lot of healing and discomfort around this topic. There's a lot of shame and guilt for me when the topic of religion comes up. But over the last few weeks, I really felt like this is something I couldn't hide away from anymore. This conversation was like ready to happen. And so, I just couldn't think of anyone better suited to share this space with me than you. So, you'll see in the title, this episode is going to focus on both of our own personal accounts of religion and spiritual exploration, but also intuitive discernment, which is huge with this topic and in life in general, with anything we decide to bring into our lives. So, to begin with, are you happy to share who you are, your line of work, and your relationship with religion?
Yes. Who am I? That's a good question. Changing all the time. Yeah, a real seeker on the path, and I have a real desire at this point to share a message of, those who have grown up in religion and are feeling that they've fallen out of love with their faith. Kind of in an in-between zone. I feel it's really important to share that there's a true spirituality that exists within each of us, directly to source creation, that we can explore, develop, and nurture, that is every bit as full and deep and consuming as any lineage or faith out there. And that ultimately I feel we're all called to claim that path in our life and to cultivate it, and that any organization that we're born into or drawn into at best can only help us get started on that journey, and eventually we're going to have to take that journey the rest of the way ourselves. And that will challenge everyone else around us who's maybe not at that point on their path. And I know I'm kind of getting deep down one topic. Who am I? That's maybe that is a big part of who I am in this life, what I offer out to others, which is I take my spirituality seriously, and it doesn't align. It's not a part of any lineage. It's not a part of any religion. I study and work with lots of different faiths. but I'm also quick to almost just pull from them what I feel is the most pure essence of the spirituality within that faith, and try to clean off any doctrine or and and bring in how it would fit in with what I understand to be a very serious path for myself. And I took being a Christian very seriously till I was 28 years old. Well, my Saturn return pretty
Yeah.
that path.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll pause there. I know I'm kind of going far down, and you asked me two or three good questions, and I don't know if I've answered all of them. You could rephrase.
Yes. Also, you can go deep straight away. That is no problem. This is a deep conversation, so whatever needs to come out can definitely just, yeah, allow to be there. I guess it would be really interesting if you're happy to share your kind of journey of being really involved in the Christian faith and then making that decision to leave and kind of reinvent who you are.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, happy to share this. So I was raised by my mother I have an older brother, 2 years older than me. And my parents split when I was 3. My mother raised me and my brother in the faith of Jehovah's Witnesses. And for those, most people have had some interaction with Jehovah's Witnesses, but maybe very few know what happens behind the closed doors of that faith. And it's very much an all-consuming life kind of thing. There's like we attend meetings 3 times a week. We're encouraged to read our Bible daily. They produce their own literature that you're encouraged to keep up with, which includes like monthly magazines, yearly new books that come out, studies of the scriptures. We're encouraged to go door to door as in an organized way of like a public ministry to teach people about the Bible, teach people how to understand the Bible. As a religion, they go through the Bible collectively every 7 years. Every single page is read and studied, and then you do that on your own. Where as you get older, you're given assignments to like take like one chapter out of one book of the Bible and study it and give a presentation on it, and that goes and goes. So like it's a very deep and committed path, and you're encouraged to not develop close friendships outside of that faith, because they say that would pull you out of your faith, and you're only allowed to marry within your faith. And you're no sex before marriage, so then it becomes a very tight dating is supposed to be only done with a view to marriage.
Yeah.
And all these things start to stack up to a very serious and dedicated life, and also everyone kind of watching everybody like, hey, I don't know if you're really following the rules like you're supposed to. I mentioned all these things just to let you know it wasn't a casual or passive attendance or membership. It's very active. You're encouraged to get baptized and dedicate your life to God and that religion. And I chose to do that at the age of 13. I had a real love for God and the divine as a child, and 13 seemed late for me to even get baptized, because I was already, I got it. I felt it. I got it. And like was so happy to be like, yes, I want to devote my life to a path of like truth and goodness, and for God out there to love me and be happy with me and feel that alignment, and my family and my community. And I really went for it. And within that faith, I excelled. Um, did different things that were like volunteer ways of being. There's a path called being a pioneer, where you devote 1,000 hours a year into volunteer work, mostly in the door-to-door ministry and the like voluntarily studying of the teaching others with the study of the Bible. And I did that for 2 years in my late teens, coming into my 20s. I eventually, they have their own like little rank, more so for the men and the women, but the rank of like a ministerial servant and then an elder, and it's like positions of responsibility within the organization where you take on more and more like public speaking roles and responsibilities within the church, or we called it a congregation. And I became a ministerial servant and gave public talks, some of them 45 minutes long, in front of an audience of 100 or more up on
Wow.
stage. And I would travel to other congregations and deliver these talks. And one beauty, the first 45-minute talk I ever gave, the title of it, which is they give you an outline and you prepare their outline to give, but it takes weeks and months to develop that outline enough to where you can give it. But the topic was keep growing in your relationship with God. And I enjoy that irony at this point in my life, that I feel my relationship has continued to grow beyond that religion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the inside of that story, is that it was a big part of my life.
Yeah.
I got married at the age of 20. We were together for 4 years, and then she had a like crisis of her faith and was wanting to leave the religion and me, and she left and our marriage ended. And that rocked my world, both for my love story of like this woman that I thought we had made the decision to be together forever, even though we were 20 and she was 18.
Oh, so young.
But also the pressure of the community and the religion to get
Yeah.
together, to not just date and experience love. We had to get married so that we
Yeah.
not be making love in sin or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so there's all that pressure, and that pressure put us into a place where we were not ready to be. And it broke. And I see that clearly now. Like, we could have easily just been in love and dated and gone our separate ways without the tragedy of divorce or that expectation. And I would say, so I'm 24 years old at the divorce. I spent a couple years in a pretty deep depression. And slowly start to let go of some of my responsibilities within the church, just because I can't keep up with them, with my depression and other things. And like, I see a therapist, which challenged my church because the therapist wasn't a part of the church. And had more and more challenges that within my internal world that my congregation, my elders, my church couldn't support me with and help me with. They would tell me to like read my Bible more, study more.
Yeah.
But I was actually reading my Bible a lot and studying
Yeah.
it a lot. Like, and I knew it well to where I didn't have doubts about my own loyalty to my spiritual path. But I was questioning more and more their rule making and their strictness and their guilt and shaming. And so love surfaces in my heart again, and I'm not quick to get married again. And I'm also feeling attracted to a woman who's not in my faith. And I begin to date her, and my congregation, my church is like, whoa, 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 what are you doing, Shane? And they're like, hey, you're gonna have to break it off for this woman, or you're gonna lose your standing within the church. And I'm like, but I'm really attracted to her, really feeling a lot of love here. And like stuck between, I wasn't ready to leave my faith, and that wasn't in my conscious mind what I was trying to do, but I was also attracted to this other woman. And I continued the relationship with her, and so I got disfellowshipped from my faith, which is word they use to basically, once you're a baptized witness, you have to uphold the standards of the church, and if you don't, you can lose your standing within the community. And they call it disfellowshipping because if they come to that decision where they disfellowship you, no one in the church, community, religion is allowed to speak with you or talk with you. There is ways for you to come back in, but it's like a process of like a letter of intent and several months and communications, and it could take a year or more to come back into the religion. And that's what they want from you is for you to return and feel ashamed of what you've done, and
Mm-hmm.
feel the loss of family and friends and community, and they want that to hurt so bad that you would come back in. And I spent the next 3 years considering coming back in.
Mm.
I spent the next 3 years kicked out of the faith, dating this other woman, and occasionally coming back into the meetings, sometimes pretty regularly, would sit silently because no one would talk with me. I'd come in and I'd go.
Mm.
And I had that, whoa, just like thinking that, like, hey, I just need to explore some more concepts of myself and maybe make peace with these things. And then I can find my new path back in with my religion and my faith. But it was 3 years of that. And I put a letter of intent to come back in even after 3 years, and you have to have a certain amount of good behavior and whatever
Mm.
under your belt. And they were like, yeah, Shane, we think it'll be a while, give us another letter in a few more months. And I didn't like them like kind of brushing me off like that. And
Yeah.
like, okay, you know what, I think I'm done. And I moved out of I was living on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and I moved to Kauai at that point, and
Wow.
didn't know anyone, and kind of gave myself permission to go even deeper into an exploration of more faiths and my own spirituality.
Mm.
And I would say even then, I spent many years, the guilt and the shame is tough to release.
Mm.
And even my own doubts about, wow, have I really like lost, like in the narrative of my family's mind, I would be like taking in the teachings of demons, and I would be
Yeah.
blinded by the mind of like Satan is blinding my mind,
Yeah.
and deceiving me, and I've lost my spiritual vision to be able to
Mm.
discern right and wrong. And I know that that's their belief in me and my path, and that voice is loud in the back of the head,
Yeah.
especially as I explored many paths of like entheogenic plant medicines. And
Yeah.
like I moved into I became a part of a community within Kauai where we were working with ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
Then within after a year of being a part of that community, I continued in that community. I also got invited into a community called the Native American Church, working with peyote and the ceremony there. And I worked with both those communities simultaneously for the next 4 years, 5 years, working deep plant medicines and directions, and even exploring with mushrooms on my own, and working with
Mm.
San Pedro, like lots of different plant medicines, lots of different spiritual communities, lots of different modalities. I worked with the Daime Church for a bit, which is also a ayahuasca church based out of Brazil. And there would be moments deep, the next morning after a full night of medicine, where I'd be like, where am I? Who am I? Like, wow, am I just like lost on some path? Like, what would my family think of me to see me
Mm.
in this space? And so that was still happening maybe 5 years after I'd left. So it's a long monologue I'm giving here, but that's
No,
a bit of the territory.
yeah. That was, you know what? It's like I can feel that pain when you
Mm,
said, by being disfellowshipped, no one's allowed to speak to you, and that includes like family, right?
yes,
That's really painful.
it is.
Um, and it's no wonder that, however many years on,
Mhm.
you know, there's still that little seed of doubt or shame. We are kind of programmed to, with a desire for approval,
Yeah.
particularly from family,
Mhm.
and stepping into your own path, whatever that is. And it doesn't need to be moving from religion into something else. It can be, just any path that doesn't 100% align with your society's views or your parental views, family views. It is painful, and it's so much easier actually to just stay in
Mhm.
that, you know um it's easier to diminish our needs and desires and just stay with what we've been brought up knowing. Actually taking that leap of faith and moving away from it and following our own path is the hard way to do it. And I can feel that pain when you speak about it. Yeah, it stirred something up in me I need to explore. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That's a really, really powerful story. Yeah, so I guess my in terms of why I felt I needed this conversation, just to kind of give a background, I grew up, well, Catholic technically, but like we only went to church on Easter and Christmas Day. So, you know, oh, well, I did go to Sunday school, but that was because I had to, for my first Holy Communion, I think I had to go to Sunday school. But I mean, beyond that, there wasn't really much Catholic, doctrine within the home. My parents both, well, my mum actually grew up very interested in the Jehovah's Witnesses. I actually have a family member who's a witness, and my mother's funeral actually was, I believe, I didn't recognize any of the hymns, and I was told they were Jehovah's Witnesses hymns that were sung, because when my mum was ill, supposedly she, as many people do when they are kind of facing death, move dip back into religion, kind of looking for that help from God. And what she knew was kind of, Jehovah's Witnesses. So she was kind of exploring that idea. I believe I was told again before she died. So it's interesting for me. I know a little bit about the religion, but not a whole lot. So for me, so grew up kind of Catholic school, first Holy Communion. I mean, my school, we had nuns on site, religious education multiple times a week. We were taught very much no sex before marriage. I actually believe in one lesson, religious education lesson, there was conversations about sex is only for procreation. Contraception, anything is taboo. But anyway, you kind of took it with a pinch of salt. And my mother passed away when I was 11, passed over, shall I say. And I went into a deep, deep depression at 11 years old. It was like nothing I can explain. And actually it really governed my whole teenage years. This intense anxiety and upset. And it got to a point, I was around 14, maybe, 14, 15, perhaps let's say 14. And it was so bad. I would go to school every day. I'd be crying all day at school. Just throughout the day, there would just be tears streaming down my face. And I had this impending fear that either I was going to die or a family member was going to die. And I would have visions of myself walking out in the road getting hit by a car. I would have visions, really, really horrible, clear as day visions of being brutally murdered, or all these awful things. And one of my close friends, and she's still a close friend of me now, she said, why don't you come with me to church on Sunday? It might make you feel better, it might not, but it will give you a chance. It might, if it helps, then great. And I said, yep, I will try anything. And I went along with her on the Sunday, and I fell in love with it. I loved it. I loved the sense of community. I loved the music. I don't even know what type of, they actually didn't really identify with like a style of church. It's just, I would just call it Christian, hands up in the air, singing, electric guitars, having a good time. Like I couldn't believe the pastor wore like jeans and a t-shirt. I was like, where's all the gear? How is this church? Because I'd only really known Catholicism really. And to be honest, actually, I had gone to that church a couple of times when I was around 13, but if I'm honest, we just went because there were boys there, and I went to an all-girls school and we didn't really get to see boys, so there were boys at church, so we went along. But really, my interest peaked when I was like 14, 15, and I went along, and I was, crying, and I've really, actually, probably for the first time in my life, felt that sense of the divine, of God and spirit. And it was incredible. I went all in. I moved away from, this is then spanning probably across the next 3 years. I moved away from my friends, my kind of secular friends. I had one of my best friends, who's a really close friend of mine again now, but we went from the being around her house every night, every weekend, together, joint at the hip, to then kind of passing each other in the hallway at college and just having a smile and not really interacting. So I really did go all in, and I really just wanted to surround myself with people who were in that faith. I got baptized at 15. Had a boyfriend in the church. This was it for me. I was all in. My whole bedroom wall was covered in post-it notes. You couldn't even see the wall anymore. Covered in post-it notes, all with Bible verses. So it was everywhere. I like fully immersed myself. And for me, I believed that religion, this faith, saved me. It saved me from my depression. It saved me from this fear of death. It saved me from myself. But then, after a while, I mean, my memory is always a little bit foggy. Trauma related fogginess, I believe. But over the course of about 3 years, then towards the end of that, my depression came back in full swing. What was working for me with faith wasn't working anymore. And I began to question my position there, and whether that was right for me. I started to feel a lot of shame when I was there. I felt like I had such a desire to explore the world, experiment, with different things, going out, partying, having a good time, being with different people, different relationships, exploring friendships, love, all of these different things that kind of a young adult generally has a desire to do. And then I would go to, when I was at university, then I would then go to like the Christian Union meeting during the week, and I would think, oh my God, what am I doing? How can I be out last night till 6 a.m. and tonight I'm singing in the Christian Union? Like it just felt, I was like, this isn't right. How can I be so, I always felt like I was pretending then to be this lovely Christian girl, and the real me was out the night before till 6 a.m. exploring life and having the best time. And I felt such a conflict between these two people. And I actually felt I couldn't be both. I didn't feel in that faith for me that there was a space for the me that wanted to explore the world and the me that also wanted to have a relationship with God and spirit and the divine. So I eventually moved away from it, and have been on this journey of spiritual exploration ever since. And what that looks like for me now compared to 5 years ago is very different. But even, my sister actually asked me a couple of months ago, I did a post on Instagram with Sarwin blessings, and that obviously indicates that I'm working with the earth and with the elements, and traditionally that would be quite a pagan festival. And she said, well, do you still believe in Jesus then? And I said, of course I believe in Jesus. And she was like, oh, but I just wondered because of your post, like, I don't mean this offensively, I just genuinely am interested, like, how does the two marry up? And for me, I was like, gosh, you know what, really, in this world that we live in, it's not the norm to be able to have this spiritual path of being able to pray to many different deities, light beings, ascended masters, worship the elements, the moon, Mother Earth. And also, I can still pray to Jesus. I very much believe that he is a light being, he's an ascended master, and I can call on him when I need him. But I also call on the Divine Mother. I also call on the moon. I call on the elements. I call on Ganesha. I call on Archangel Michael. I work with him every single day. And for me, this feels amazing. How blessed are we that we can call in all of these light beings, all of these ascended masters who walked before us, or who are in the spirit, who have always been in the spirit realm. We have access to them. And within a one God religion, I struggled that wasn't allowed. It was just this one ascended master or one version of God that they believed to be true. And maybe that wasn't what felt true for me. I wanted to be able to access all of these incredible beings. And that feels amazing for me. Yeah. So I've kind of gone off on a tangent here, but this is, for me, that's what feels so beautiful about being on this earth. and living at this time that we have, and we do have access to all these incredible beings. And I struggled that in a one God religion, it was their belief and that was it. And I couldn't pray to any of these other incredible beings, which can provide such light and healing in our lives.
Yeah,
Mm.
I agree. On my exiting the faith, I became much more interested in direct communion with spirit versus like reading, thinking, intellectualizing about who and what spirit is. It's like,
Mm.
mysticism is a genre of spirituality that kind of relies on that direct experience for spirituality. And I would say like plant medicines were my route into experiencing different perspectives and forms of reality that felt just as valid as this form, and informed gave me more insights to what life is and the nature of life, and what is more constructed maybe by he.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I got to the point where I set the entire Bible aside and said no thank you.
Mm.
Like it became clear to me that I could access every truth I needed to know between me and source. And
Yeah.
I let go of God even being a figure or an entity separate from everything.
Mm.
Uh, I felt we are all manifestations of source, and that there is
Yeah.
nothing that's not source. And
Yeah.
that source is not also another character in the play. Source is the entire play.
Yes.
And that's where my evolution of spirituality has gone, so much so that I felt that the teachings of the Bible were distorting me more than clarifying me. And so
Mm-hmm.
as much as I studied them and know them well and still know them well, I could teach courses on the Bible right now, but
Yeah.
I no longer need it for my spirituality. And I wanted it out of the way so that I could be kind of clean slate for where my own intuition
Mm.
arrived me.
Yeah.
And I would say that like anytime a religion claims that they have that full narrative on an eternal aspect of source or life, there would
Mm.
there's very much just as easy, if Jesus was a real entity, there could be easily 1,000 books about who and what he is.
Yeah.
And for one interpretation to claim that they know it all is already a distortion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm very mindful of noting that for some people, I know we're talking about Christianity because that's what we both have experience with, but in any, religion, that does work for some people, and this isn't taking away from anyone else's truth. But we're obviously just speaking from our own accounts of our own truth. And I think that leads on really nicely to this piece on, intuitive discernment and spiritual discernment. This is huge. And we are all highly intuitive beings, whether someone feels like they are right now or not. That is a relationship that can be cultivated 100%, and worked on. But with and I actually would encourage anyone in anything that they experience in life, whether this be religion, whether this be any text, any teaching, even in the secular material world, anything we see, I would encourage people to have intuitive discernment on whether that's something they want to bring into their lives. And I think I struggled with, and this is again my story, I struggled with having a one God religion because, you have to take the entire teachings as 100% truth.
Mhm.
And this is something we came on to just as we caught up at the start. And this felt big for me when I had this revelation that my struggle with that is that by taking one text as 100% truth, I have to therefore trust that the individuals receiving the word of God, of source, that received those words and interpreted them and wrote them down, I have to trust that that interpretation was not influenced by any ego, any desire to control, any patriarchal beliefs, any just beliefs in general that would influence how they received those words. Beyond that, I also have to trust that the spiritual institution that I am a part of is interpreting those words again in a way that is 100% in a line for me and my soul, and again, not influenced by ego, patriarchy, desire for control, anything else that is a belief that would influence how they receive those words and how they interpret them. You are handing over all of your trust to these other people. And for me, that takes away the sacredness of our own intuitive discernment, because I know what is right for me. My soul knows what is right for me, knows what parts of that religious text make the most sense for me and my life. Yet, being involved in that religion, I would need to hand over that trust and actually diminish my intuition and trust somebody else's. And as I've been on this path of my spiritual journey, intuition has always been a big one for me. I was always a very intuitive child, teenager, so it does feel natural for me, this connection. But I know when something's right for me, and I know when I can listen to something and say, oh, okay, you know what, interesting, but that isn't aligned with my path. And then when I think about any teachings, even when we're not even talking about religion, there's some teachings within the spiritual community that I see, and they seem very dogmatic, and it's very, this is the truth. And again, this doesn't have to be just religion. It can be anything in society, but anything that tells you that this is the truth before giving you the chance to intuitively discern whether that is your truth, for me, is a bit of a red flag on my journey.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Anymore, all you can ever claim is what you personally believe. I can never say what is right for everybody on all times. I
Yeah.
can't say that, no one else can. We have to come to that understanding ourselves,
Yeah.
arrive there.
And this will change as well, I think, over time. What is right for me right now, next week might not be, and next year might not be. And what feels authentic and in integrity to my journey right now might not in the future. And that is something as well. There's this process of unattachment to everything in life, and unattachment to our beliefs as well, open to change and open to fluidity as we move through life.
Yeah, that's true growth. I think I mentioned it before we started recording that, like, once I hit that threshold of walking away from something that I believed in 1,000%, I believed in this. I actively knocked on strangers' doors and taught them what I believed, and I felt like it was the right thing to do, and believed it inside and out, and then came to a realization where I no longer believed that. Now, it's been almost 18 years since I left that faith. I have to hold all beliefs of my own, like, very loosely or gently now, because, like, I'm aware that no matter how much conviction I have of belief today, that it can evolve, that it can change, and that's real growth.
Yeah.
And there's also beauty in the fact that as a child within that religion, I experienced something true in a relationship with the divine. It was real. That was real. There's beauty there. That substance is still with me today.
Yeah.
What I've had to do is, like, slowly, like, fine tooth comb out everything that was layered on top of my innocence and connection to source as a child. All the stories that told me, oh, you experienced something that was Jesus or that was God, and it looks like, well, like those are somebody else's words. I was just
Yeah.
having an experience. I was connecting with the divine. And then how that gets interpreted is contextual for your family, your community, faith. And but learning how to like rescue that, or not lose that in the growth of life and all of its interpretations, but to continue to develop and grow that initial connection with source is kind of the path I'm on at this moment. And to realize that it does happen when we're young as children, and it does happen even inside of faiths, but it doesn't mean that the faith owns it.
Yes.
Like they're lawyers or something trying to hold contracts over you.
Yeah.
You got baptized, or you're this or you're that, but like, no, like that connection between you and source is yours, and no one else owns it,
Yeah.
controls it. And the more they add details or rules or guidelines, those are all layers on top of just a pure relationship
Yeah.
between you. But love and life is what's
Yeah.
real, and everything else is interpretation.
Yeah. I love that. Nobody owns God. And that's a big one to think about, you know. We are like, not one religion or one faith or one healing modality can claim that they are the path to source, because source is within us. We all have the divine within each and every one of us. It's actually a connection, like one line between us and source, you know, and we can access that without ever having an experience within religion, you know, or even any spiritual healings. They help and they assist when we don't know how to get there, but ultimately we can do that on our own. We have a direct line to source, and that's beautiful, you know. How amazing. And you know, I've experienced, just as you were chatting there, it made me think, I have had very, very almost identical experiences of connection to the divine within the church and also within shamanic healing. I've actually, on a physical level, I have my, when I am super connected to source, my and spirit, my eyelids will flicker, and it's only happened a few times in my life. It's really, and when I'm deep, 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 but it happened within the church congregation, connecting to spirit, and it also happened within shamanic healing, connecting to spirit. So that means that spirit is present no matter what faith I was housed in at that time, which reaffirms for me that that connection with spirit is my connection, it's my direct line. And actually, I could do that anywhere. I could do that sitting here on my mat in my room by myself. I could do that no matter what faith or what healer I was associated with, because the fact that a cookie cutter, basically identical experience can happen in two polar opposite experiences, if that makes sense, you know, working with a shamanic healing practitioner or working, you know, within the congregation in church, that shows me that it's me that's doing that. It's my connection with spirit, and everything else is just there to assist and support, but it's my connection with spirit that's there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's almost like the environment that's holding you. And
Yeah.
if the environment's holding you in a gentle and supportive enough way, then your
Yeah.
channel can open up and you can have direct communion between basically your own. I believe us all to be divinity, and
Yeah.
we're waking up to our divinity. So there's different levels of being like asleep or disconnected to the reality of who and what we are. And in illusion of separateness, we can be self-destructive and harmful to ourselves and each other and the planet and all these things. And so then we look out and we're like, hey, we can't be divine. Look what a mess we are. Look how mean that person is, or how violent that. But like, this is divinity in its like asleep or disconnected state. And as we awaken to what we are, and if you look out, you see religions teaching that disconnection. And so it's not so mysterious that we're in a disconnected state. We have a society that encourages and teaches disconnection and
Yeah.
supports the illusion of separateness. So you really have to fight against the grain to learn how to claim what your truth is. And we can do that for each other. We can reflect each other like a mirror back so that you can see your divinity better. And then that's how we can help support each other to remember who and what we are. And in that state, it became clear to me after I left my faith that like the only sin there is against your own divine nature.
Yeah.
Acknowledging your divinity is the sin.
Yeah.
There is no sin to another. You are divine. If you don't acknowledge your divinity, you're short of honoring the truth and beauty of who and what you are. And that is the only sin per se. There
Yeah.
is no punishment awaiting you. There is no judgment awaiting you. All you can do is want to experience life again, to continue to grow in your understanding of love and full expression of your true nature.
Yeah.
And anything that teaches or attempts to come in between you and your direct connection to source, I would say beware.
Yeah.
Beware. Anyone who, that's a deceiver that tries to tell you that you need them in order to connect.
Yeah. And that goes for any healers, any faith, and any healers. If anybody says or indicates that you need them in order to, yeah, as you said, connect with your source or heal, red flag.
Red flag. Religions that teach that you need a mediator to access God,
Yeah.
it puts God outside of you. God's not outside of you. God's already here.
God's within already.
So you don't need somebody to get back here.
Yeah.
Not even Jesus. I would say if Jesus was a real figure, he taught that you are already here.
Yeah.
You didn't need him to tell you that, but he was also telling you that.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of anyone who's awake here will also tell you that.
Yeah.
And that you don't need them to, but it's nice if they do. They can help support you to find
That's
that.
it. Yeah.
But you didn't need them to, or you didn't need to go through them to get back here. They were maybe in their own enlightened, awakened state and reflected that back to you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And in that, there's another spirit of the oneness of creation.
Yeah.
That we can access directly at any moment that we're ready to.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing that